Hi, good morning. My name is Ashley Johnson. I'm the Business Outreach Librarian at the Vernon Area Library, and today we are here with Jennifer Roberts from We Place People to talk about the recruiting process, working with recruiters, best practices for making sure that the relationship is a two-way street. So I'll let her introduce herself, but before we do that, I wanted to mention a couple upcoming programs that we have at the library. I think it's August 11th. We have, it's August 6th. We have Beat the Application Tracking System. So much of job seeking today is sort of AI based. So you submit your resume and a computer decides whether or not you are the one for the job. So we're going to talk about how to make sure that your resume and what you submit is checking all the boxes for the robots. So take a look at that and register. And we also have a couple other programs like on Python and more skills-based programs, but I always want to remind people that just because the library doors aren't open, we still have access, digital services access, so you can use Hoopla and Canopy and all of our digital 24/7 resources, as well as curbside pickup is up and running right now. So with that, I'll hand it over to my friend Jen. Hi, Jen. Good morning.
Hi there. Welcome, everybody. Let me share my screen with you. All right. Does everybody, I think we see it. So today we are going to talk about how to successfully work with recruiters during your job search. I think more than ever, this is a prevalent topic as times have changed and the way you work with recruiters has changed over the years. Okay, we're having a little difficulty here. One moment. Let's try it this way. Sorry, everyone.
Do you see in the middle of your screen how it says slideshow and then resume slideshow? Maybe click that. It's like right on top of your, right on top of your slide in the sort of middle of the screen.
Yeah, my mouse isn't taking me there. It's not letting me go over to the middle.
Another option is on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. There's like the percentage sign and then plus and minus, and that one that looks like a board on a presentation board. There you go.
There we go.
Okay,
So a little bit about me. Sorry, I am a recruiter, not a technical IT person. But my name is Jennifer Roberts, and I am the Senior Client Account Manager of We Place People. We're a nationwide executive search and management development firm. I have over 25 years of experience in the human resource field, and then also I've been a senior recruiter across multiple industries, both on the corporate side as well as working for search firm. So I bring both sides of that experience to be able to help you today. Some of the topics that we're going to be covering, how the world of finding a job has changed, types of recruiters and what are the differences, the do's and don'ts when applying for jobs. We will talk about the most common questions when working with an outside recruiter, some of the myths about working with recruiters, the pros and the cons, how much information will be shared with the potential employer, how do outside recruiters present my resume to a company? That's something that a lot of people are concerned about. And then, should I work with multiple recruiters at once? Your resume and what it is saying, tips on how to work with a recruiter, how to be prepared for today's interviews during COVID-19 and during normal times, and then the interview itself. What are the do's and don'ts? And then we'll open it up for any questions at the end. So let's talk about finding a job. It all starts with, finding a job and going through the whole recruitment process. So let's talk about that. So finding a new job has changed over time. In many cases, it's who you know. So how do you go about finding a job? Sometimes it's with job postings. Sometimes it's with referrals. Nowadays, referrals is the #1 way that people get jobs. It's who you know. The more you can connect with your network, maybe it's if you have kids, maybe it's your friends' parents who work at a company, it's people at your church, it's people with your kids play sports with, it's your neighbors, it's people that you come in contact with every day. Everybody knows somebody who can connect you somehow, some way to a new opening. LinkedIn is a great tool more than ever. LinkedIn is becoming a tool for both recruiters and for job candidates. My advice to you is to make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date at all times. Make sure that you use keywords for that are related to what you're wanting to do. If you are an accountant and you specialize in a certain type of accounting, make sure all of those key buzzwords are in your profile, because telling you from the recruiting side, we use LinkedIn every day to find candidates. We do searches with keywords. And if you don't have those keywords in your profile, I and my other, cohorts out in the field will miss you and your resume and your profile because you won't come up in our search. And then using outside recruiters. Outside recruiters are a big part of finding a job today. Many companies, they can't rely on just their internal staff. They rely on outside recruiters to help them fill openings that perhaps are taking too long, they can't find the right candidates, or they are wanting to upgrade their talent. So a lot of times they'll go to outside recruiters. So what are the different types of recruiters and what is the difference? Well, we're going to talk, there's corporate recruiters, agency recruiters, staffing or recruiting firm recruiters like myself, and then there's what we call headhunters. So let's talk about corporate recruiters. Corporate recruiters are employed by the company itself. They may actually be called a recruiter. They may be called a talent acquisition professional. And they also may be just a human resource generalist who has the function of being a recruiter within the company. They typically will handle multiple openings. I know on the corporate side as a recruiter, oftentimes I would have over 100, sometimes 200 openings that I was responsible for filling. So sometimes when you think that you're a priority to a recruiter in the corporate world, you're really not, because they are working with multiple openings. They handle many applications and resumes that tend to come in. They're handling resumes that are for specific job postings, as well as resumes that are coming in just because they want to be in the company's database. They will not offer you guidance or much insight during the process. So they're not going to say, well, your resume might be okay, but you may want to tweak it here. You may want to be more specific. They're not going to give you advice on where you might improve your interviewing skills or how you interviewed along the way. Typically, they only respond to applicants from posted positions. A lot of times, corporate recruiters don't have the luxury or the time to be able to direct recruit. They're trying to keep up with the load of applications and resumes that come from posted positions. Just to give all of you an idea, when I post a position out on numerous job boards and so forth and through my networks, any given position, I can get over 50, 75 plus resumes a day. If it's an administrative position, I could get well over 100, 150 resumes a day. So we're going to talk about the importance later of really making sure that your resume is going to stand out so it doesn't hit the delete and trash button. So then there's agency recruiters. Agency recruiters typically handle temp or contract employment. You may have heard of some companies in the old days, Kelly Services, maybe Manpower. They typically will get large orders for temporary workers or contract employment. Maybe it's around tax time. They may hire, tax help. They may hire warehouse help. They may fill administrative positions to help with administrative leaves or medical leaves. They receive job orders for a company, and then those recruiters will go and fill those orders. Typically, you will go into the agency and meet with recruiters. Some can help place you, but it's typically, like I said, in a temp or a contract situation. Oftentimes, they'll offer different testing. So if it's an administrative position or secretarial, you may be tested on all sorts of skill sets. If it's warehouse, you may be tested on different skills so that they can promote you to their client with how you've scored on various tests. They typically will have a staffing agreement in place with various companies who then give them orders to fill. Then there's staffing or recruiting firm recruiters. I work for a nationwide recruiting firm, and we are contracted to fill specific roles for a company. So there may be a small company who doesn't have an HR department. They may not have recruiters. Maybe it's a medium to large size company. They have recruiters in-house, but maybe they have hard to fill positions, or it's taking too long to fill the role. Maybe they're looking for a specific skill set that their team has not been able to find, or they're wanting to hire from a competitor. And so it's hard for them to go tap into their competitors. So they'll ask us to go tap into the company for them. Recruiting firms typically have specialties. They may specialize in the healthcare industry. They may specialize in marketing or IT. Then there's firms like We Place People, where we are across the board. We have recruiters who specialize in various industries so that we're able to offer a wide spectrum of services. Staffing firms have a personal relationship with many companies. They act as the liaison between the company and the candidate. And really, if they're a good staffing and recruiting firm, they will have such a good personal relationship that they can actually promote the company's positions as if it were their own. They have a signed staffing agreement in place. So the company will accept resumes for their open positions because they have a staffing agreement. A lot of people may try to send off a resume to a company and say, I have a candidate, they look pretty good, I think they would be a fit for your opening. But if there's not a signed staffing agreement in place, oftentimes that company won't accept their resume submittal. Then there's what we call a headhunter. Headhunter has taken on a different meaning today. It used to be that a recruiter was the one who filled positions, and headhunters were the ones that actually went out and found the people to apply for the company. Headhunters today are a rare commodity in the job search market. They typically are used for higher salaried positions. They may not always have a signed agreement because they are kind of, quote, pimping you out or your resume in hopes that the company will accept the resume. They typically will impose a hefty fee. It could be anywhere from $400 to $4,000, depending, because it's on a large portion of salary that the candidate is going to be receiving. So when you hear the word, I'm working with a headhunter, typically those people are really working with a recruiter, because headhunting is kind of a thing of the past. So the do's and don'ts when applying for the job. First of all I can suggest and stress is read the posting. You really want to make sure that the job that you are applying for is something that you are really qualified for. Know what they're asking, know what the position is. I can't tell you how frustrating it is as a recruiter to get very excited because all of a sudden I got 50 new resumes and only 2 of them actually have the experience for the job. Don't just send your resume because you feel that that's how you're going to get into the company's database. Because what happens is you upset the recruiter, and you upset the recruiter, your resume doesn't go any further. So you want to be on the positive side of the recruiter. Like I said, only apply for jobs that you are qualified for. Keep a log. I really recommend that you keep a log, and every time you send your resume to a job, make sure you mark it down, like what was the job that you applied for? Did you apply for it on LinkedIn? Was it Indeed? Was it, Career Builder? Was it ZipRecruiter? Keep a log so that you know when a recruiter reaches back out to you that you can match up the job that you applied for. Oftentimes I hear, I don't know, I applied for so many jobs, I don't remember which job is this, or I'm not interested, I just had applied for many jobs and I'm not really prepared for this job. If a company is listed, research the company. Oftentimes, even if you're working for a third-party company, they may have a retained search, which means they're getting paid by the company to hire or to find candidates for the specific position, and so they may list the company. If the company is looking for talent themselves, they will put the company name in. Research the company that you're going to be talking to. Even if it's a third-party search firm, like We Place People, go ahead, go out to the website, learn a little bit about the people that you're going to be talking to. When you apply, make sure it's with accurate information. You really want to make sure that your resume is up to date, that it's current, that it has the right information. I can't tell you how many times we interview candidates and they say, oh, that's my old version of my resume, or, I don't know how that information got on there. I was working with a resume writer. They must have added that information. Another thing that's typically not is people's education. If you didn't graduate, don't be misleading and make it look like you have graduated. It's more important to be accurate than to stretch the truth. You will find out during the background check. Once you send your resume, don't apply for multiple positions within the company or with other firms. And what I mean by that is, if you see that Amazon is hiring and you send in your resume for a warehouse worker, don't also send them their resume for their marketing position, for their accounting position, for whatever it may be, because you only want to apply for the position that you are the qualified for. Sometimes people send in multiple resumes for every position the company has in hopes that it'll increase their chances of being seen by a recruiter. If you apply for Amazon directly to Amazon, if you see another company who has posted a very similar position and you believe it is for Amazon, don't also go to that recruiter and have them represent you. Same thing if I share with you that I am searching for a position and it's with Macy's department store. If you talk to me and I say I'm going to submit you, don't go out to Macy's to their website and now apply for the position. You will oftentimes eliminate yourself just by double dipping into your representation. So be careful of that. Again, that's why it's important to have a log so that you don't send out your resume for the same job multiple times. And then again, apply with the current resume. And then using the job boards. Job boards are good in many cases because that's how you hear of a lot of openings. If you are going to post your resume on a job board, really get to know who is submitting your resume. My personal preference is don't post your resume out on a job board. Actually submit your resume to posted jobs. And the difference is if you post your resume out on the job board, any recruiter can pick up your resume and they can start submitting it to different companies on your behalf, and you may not even know that you would have been submitted for that position. The recruiter knows nothing about the job. They know nothing about what the requirements are, but they think you might be a fit, so they go ahead and submit you. Then they wait for the company to say, yeah, we have an interest, and now they'll come to you, and you never even thought about applying for that position. Or what happens is maybe you apply on your own, and the company says, we already have your resume. I'm sorry, we can't accept the resume. You never applied. Some common questions, myths about working with outside recruiters. Is there a fee? There should never be a fee to work with a recruiter. Yes, in the example that I said earlier, in working with a headhunter in a high-level position, there may be a fee, but most of job seekers out there should never be a fee. Outside recruiters, they are paid by the company. They get a percentage of the candidate's salary, and there's an agreed upon placement fee, and that is paid directly to the recruiter. It's not taken out of your salary, so you might think, now I'm going to get a lower salary because they have to pay the recruiter. They have a separate budget for recruiting and staffing, and it has nothing to do with the candidate's salary. So don't ever not work with a recruiter because you think you're going to earn less. They take your resume and pimp you out to multiple companies. The days of, taking resumes and just soliciting to multiple companies is over. Many companies won't accept a resume from a recruiter unless they have a signed agreement. So don't just send your resume off to recruiters in hopes that they can help find you a position. It's more important to actually submit your resume to recruiters who have an opening for you that you're a fit. The myth is that recruiters decide if you get hired or not. Recruiters, they don't have anything to do with the hiring or the decision making. they can decide whether or not to pass your resume on to a company, but not if you will get hired. The headhunter who smiles and dials to promote you, as I said, it rarely exists today. My chances of getting hired are greater in not going through an outside recruiter. Well, that is actually a myth, and I think I would be safe to say in my years of experience, sometimes your chances of getting hired are actually greater in using an outside recruiter. And the reason I say that is because oftentimes the recruiter has a direct relationship with the company. They are able to sit down with the hiring decision maker, and they're able to get inside information that sometimes people in their own company aren't aware of. They're able to give you greater advice throughout the interview process. The company isn't going to sit down and give you advice along the way, but an outside recruiter can, and that can help strengthen your interview in the interview process. Some of the pros and cons of working with outside recruiters. The pros are a well-connected recruiter often knows more about the role than HR. Typically in the corporate arena, what I have found is that Mary Jo leaves her accounting position, and the company decides that they need to fill that position. So they go to HR and they say, okay, let's post Mary's position. So HR typically will just use the existing job description and they'll post the job. That HR person has never sat down with a hiring manager and said, now that Mary's leaving, let's look at the role. Is there anything now today that has changed? Are you looking for additional new skill sets? Are you happy with the work that she performed? Is there something else that's missing in that job? Should we rewrite the job description? Well, an outside recruiter typically has the advantage of sitting down firsthand with the decision makers and finding out what is important to you. What is it that you're really looking for beyond just the job description? What is going to be a fit for you? And we'll talk a little bit more about fit, but it's who's going to be a fit for the company, a fit for the position, and a fit for that specific hiring manager. HR typically doesn't have time to find all that information out. Working with an outside recruiter, you have an advocate. The recruiter sits in the middle. They are working for the recruiter. They're helping them. They're trying to promote them. They're giving them advice along the way. They're also the person who's going to go to the company that's going to go to bat for you. They are going to help strengthen your interview. When there's a question, they may say, no, actually, she does have that experience. She does have that skill set. Let me share a little more with you about the candidate in our interview. When you work with a corporate recruiter, once you've interviewed, that's it. There isn't any additional information, and there's no one in your corner going to bat for you. Often, like I said, you'll get additional insight as a candidate into the position, the hiring manager. The recruiter can give you advice on your interview. They can provide insight into the people that you'll be speaking to. The cons? The only con is if you are working with a outside recruiting firm that maybe is someone who's focused on quantity versus quality. And what I mean by that is when you're working with an outside firm, you want to feel comfortable in having them represent you. Just because an outside recruiter talks to you, you can say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable at this time. I don't want you to submit my resume. You want to feel comfortable that they are focused on quality versus quantity. Are they just submitting any old candidate and hope that it sticks, or are they really taking time to interview you, get to know you, and submitting only quality candidates that are a fit. Another con is, working with somebody who hasn't built a relationship with a company. You should be able, in your conversations with the recruiting firm, you should be able to ask them questions. How well do you know the decision makers? What do you know about the company? What do you know about the position? And if they can't answer any of those questions, then they probably don't have a real strong relationship with the company. So you should ask, additional questions of the recruiter. They're interviewing you, but you can also interview them to make sure you're comfortable with them representing you. How much of my information will the recruiter share with the company? Typically, they'll share your current resume. Your contact information is typically removed so that most of the conversations will be through the recruiter to the company, instead of them contacting you directly. Notes from your interview. A good third party or a good search recruiter, they will spend time with you. They'll give you a quality interview, trying to obtain as much information as they can to promote you to the other company. So they'll typically submit those notes from the interview. They'll submit the reasons for looking, and the reasons for leaving your last 3 to 4 positions. So you want to make sure that, the reasons that you have left are, good, solid answers. And a good recruiter can help you with that in sharing different ways that you might give those reasons. For you just to say, it just wasn't a fit, I was downsized. If that cycle keeps repeating, then it's not something that's going to highlight you as a candidate. They will also highlight your experiences and background when talking with the former or with the company in representing you. The question also that's not on the slide is the company going to contact my current employer? They will never reach out, or they're not supposed to reach out to the company and start asking questions about you in your employment to your current employer or even your last employer until you have accepted and have said that you are open to the background check and you give them that permission to do so. Another question is, how does an outside recruiter present my resume to a company? They typically will submit your resume to their contact within the company. They'll attach their submittal notes or their interview notes from the conversation with you. You may be asked to complete an online application for the company. Make sure when you do that you are providing accurate information, because it can be used as a preliminary check. A lot of information is validated. Make sure that your resume matches whatever you have on LinkedIn. Oftentimes people will check LinkedIn to see if it matches up with your resume or your application. You oftentimes will be put into an applicant tracking system for both the company as well as the recruiter search firm. So the search firm may take additional information from you so that they can put you into their database. So if this position doesn't work out, they can then notify you of upcoming positions that you may be a fit for. The recruiters will have many dialogues on your behalf. Should I work with multiple recruiters? I say work with as many recruiters as you can, but again, make sure that recruiter is representing you for that one position and that you're not working with multiple recruiters for the same position. Win them over as they are your advocate. You want to be in touch with as many recruiters as possible and develop a relationship so that if an opening does come up, they will think of you top of mind and they'll reach out to you and direct recruit you and say, hey, I remember we discussed your resume. even 3 months ago. I have a client who you may be interested in, and then they'll share that position with you. Know again where you will be submitted. Never let a company submit you without you knowing and agreeing on where that company is going to send you. Your resume is the ticket in the door. It says more to the employer than you think. Make sure it is current. I can't tell you how many people I speak to on a daily basis who their resume is outdated. Make sure your current position is located if you're posting out on ZipRecruiter or Career Builder or one of the various job boards or Indeed that you find the position, make sure when you apply that your current resume is being attached. Oftentimes it's not. Know what's on your resume. I can't tell you how many people can't speak to things that are on their own resume because somebody else wrote it. They never took time to really look at it. And when the recruiter asks you questions on the resume, you shouldn't be stumped and say, I'm not sure. I had somebody else write that. I'm not sure what they meant by that. Ensure your resume speaks to the position. Many times you will need various versions of your resume. I suggest anytime you apply to the position, look at some of the responsibilities, the requirements, and make sure that that is illustrated throughout your resume. If they're looking for specific skill sets, make sure those skills are listed within your resume some way, somehow, because as Ashley was saying in the beginning, there's going to be a class on applicant tracking. Some resumes are fed into applicant tracking systems that look for keywords that are on the job description and it matches it to the resume. And if those keywords aren't there, you may be eliminated. Build a partnership, be engaging. The more that you have a partnership with the recruiter and the more engaged you are in the process, the more that recruiter is apt to really talk you up and be your advocate. Be prepared when you're working with a recruiter. I can't tell you how many times I have a call set up to speak with a candidate and they're driving or they're doing something else. If you're going to speak with a recruiter, make it a priority. Set aside the time so you can take notes and so that you can be in an area that is quiet and conducive. Every time you work with a recruiter, you should be thinking, this is like an interview. This person is going to represent me. Ask yourself, if I was the recruiter on the other end of the phone, what would I need to hear to move the candidate forward? Voice inflection. Are you excited? Are you passionate or enthusiastic? Or are you just mellow and low-keyed and you're not really memorable and you don't really have much to say except for yes or no answers? Which person are you going to want to represent? Know what your optimal goal is. Be specific. Oftentimes a recruiter will say, so what is it that you're looking for? I don't know, a new job. What is it specifically? I am looking for a integrated marketing position that will allow me to use these specific skill sets, or be specific so that the recruiter can actually help you and make sure that it is a fit. How will you differentiate yourself from other candidates? I mentioned earlier in the beginning that there are hundreds of people applying for the same job. How are you going to differentiate yourself with people who all have the same similar backgrounds and experience, but it's what have you done at those jobs that is really going to differentiate you and how you come across to show that you are a fit. Do your research on the company if you know the name or the person you will be speaking to. Find different commonalities. If you're working with a recruiter, go out on LinkedIn before you talk to them. Um, find out different things, maybe companies they've worked for, where they went to school, and use that in your conversation, and you become so much more engaging and connected with the recruiter. You only get one chance to make a great impression. How will you do that? How will you wow that recruiter to want to present you? I can't tell you, sometimes I get off the phone and I am just so blown away and impressed. I'm like, I've got to get this person in right away. They are a fit, and I will go that extra mile to really help that candidate. I may offer additional suggestions. Hey, you may want to tweak your resume. You may want to do these particular things that will really help you stand out. I may give you additional interview coaching based on our conversation. Hey, you may want to say things a little differently when you describe why you left that last position. I'm going to go out of my way to really help that person who wowed me. How will you be memorable after they interview 34 other candidates? You want to be memorable in a positive way, not a negative way. The recruiter is essentially your promoter. Just like I just said, they're the ones that are going to go to bat for you. You need to give your promoter the tools to use to promote you. The more you can be engaging, the more you can open up, the more you can share what your results were, what you've done. Those are the things that that recruiter can use outside of just your resume to talk you up. Recruiters act as your agent. Recruiters, again, they don't determine who gets hired, but they can decide who moves forward in the process for consideration. Impress, engage, and be memorable for the right reasons, not the wrong ones. I still can clearly recall several candidates who were very memorable, and it wasn't in a positive way. And you don't want to be the ones that leave that mark that when the recruiter gets together with their friends over a glass of wine, you're the one that comes up as a topic because your conversation was so off the wall. So be prepared for today's interviews. How do you be prepared for today's interviews during COVID-19, especially, and then during normal times? First of all, start improving your phone interview skills. The majority of your interviews, especially now during COVID, are going to be over the phone. You really need to, some people struggle and they say, oh, I'm so much better when I interview in person. You may not have that chance. You really need to improve your phone interview skills because that is typically the first step in the interview. And if you can't wow them over the phone, you may not get that chance to actually wow them in person. Practice Zoom, practice Microsoft Teams and FaceTime. The majority of interviews nowadays are being handled over the internet. People aren't always coming into the office, so you're going to need to be able to practice and be able to communicate well and be presentable on Zoom, Microsoft Teams, FaceTime. Maybe go through Google, YouTube, and watch different videos that say, how can I look the best when interviewing in one of these arenas? Today, many people are getting hired without ever stepping into the office. I know hundreds of people who they have started new jobs during COVID. They interviewed over the phone. They had multiple Zoom interviews, and the company welcomed them, gave them the job offer. They're now starting their positions. They're working from home until the company can open up again, and they've never have set foot into the office. So be prepared that this is the norm. Zoom is the way of the future, and many interviews will be handled over the internet. Know your resume inside and out so that if you're asked questions, you can speak to your resume. Research, research, research. Research about the company, research about the people that you're talking about. The more that you can communicate, um, the more that you can communicate all that you know, is going to really help set you apart. Companies like to hear that somebody has done their research. First impressions are critical. You have 30 seconds and you have one chance to make a great impression. A good recruiter or interviewer, they can size up a candidate in the first 5 minutes. So if you haven't wowed them in the first 5 minutes, your interview may become very short. Do your research on the company if you have the name. Don't ask the recruiter during the interview, which job am I interviewing for today? Know ahead of time before your interview as to what you're interviewing for. Do ensure that the position is in line with your skills, your experiences, your tenure, and your desired results before you ever interview for a position or speak with a recruiter. Don't apply for positions you know that you aren't qualified for. It's just a waste of everybody's time. Do demonstrate your interest by sharing your passion, your skills, results, and achievements. Don't just tell them, I can do that, I did that, or I remember doing that once. You need to be specific and give them examples. You must share with the recruiter what you've done, how you did it, and what were the results. You need to be able to explain your experience at performing the required responsibilities that that position requires. You must also share your results that will resonate with the hiring decision maker. Today, companies are hiring people who can bring about results. What have you done? How did you do it? What were the results? What will you do for the company? How will you do it? And what will the results be? You have to sell the recruiter on you so that they can sell you to the company. Look at this from a recruiter's perspective. Is this candidate exactly what the company decision maker is looking for? Would this person be a fit for the company or the decision maker? Let me tell you, the world of interviewing has changed. As our president, Steve Goldberg, here at We Place People says all the time, the world of interviewing has changed. It used to be, it was about 100%, all based on qualifications. Today, hiring decisions are about 60% based on qualifications and 40% on fit. Fit for the position, fit for the company, and fit for the hiring decision maker. Make sure you're going to be a fit. What is this person's wow factor that the gatekeeper at the company who reviews the resumes submitted will say, yes, not just okay, but I want to talk to that person right away. How soon can I talk with them? What is the company looking for? Ensure that you share with the recruiter that your experience, skills, and training will match the position. Demonstrate to the recruiter how you are the candidate of choice. What is it about you that'll make you stand out? Remember, the recruiter needs to feel confident that they will not look bad for submitting you if not qualified. At the end of the day, people, whether you're working with a corporate recruiter or an outside search firm, it's all about preparation, engagement, and differentiating yourself from others who have similar backgrounds. How will you stand out and become the candidate of choice? I'm going to open it up now to questions. Ashley, you might have received some questions along the way. And again, here's my contact information with We Place People. And I'd love to be able to, assist people along the way, whether it's interview coaching, giving you some tips on working with recruiters. We are here to assist you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. That was awesome. Here, I'm gonna turn my video on. I didn't get any questions, but I think that if anybody has worked with recruiters, you sort of mentioned it, that you kind of feel like you're rushed through a process, or you're just kind of like a number. Yeah, a piece of their, yeah, like, and then once, you talked a lot about the relationship building part of it, and I'm just wondering, I guess, how do you tell a recruiter that you want to consistently work with them versus just, I mean, is that what you're saying, that you can work with a recruiter over a
Yeah,
process job
yeah.
versus like, we
So,
have this and you're not
you
it?
can say, hey, I have really thoroughly enjoyed working with you. I want to be kept in your database. If you come across any other openings that you think I might be a fit for, or if you have any other connections with different companies that I might be introduced to, I'd love to stay in touch. I have people who they weren't a fit. I didn't submit their resume, but from time to time, they continue to reach out and say, hey, I just wanted to update you. I'm now looking for a position in this, or I think it was a problem that I didn't have my degree. I now have my degree. I just wanted you to know that. The people that stay top of mind, I remember them, and when I get a similar opening, I can go back and I'll reach those people first. That's my first step before taking all the effort of finding new people.
Mhm. And what about the kind of the speed of response? Is that, it seems like it's like, go, 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 and then it's nothing.
Right.
Is that part of the process?
It's really important that, a recruiter and a candidate, you kind of explain up front. If you know a company takes a lot longer, share with them in the beginning, hey, it's this particular company, they are, there's a lot of steps involved. This may be a 2-week process. It may be a month process. Um, the more you can be upfront with your recruiter, hey, I am being let go from my company, or we're downsizing. I have this particular time frame that I'm looking, or I may not be able to leave my job for another 2 months, because if I leave now, I'll be walking away from a bonus. So I have
Hmm.
that information so that I can then navigate with the company in setting the expectation. The more you can share up front, or in IT, a lot of times we work with individuals who are, say, they're originally from a foreign country, maybe India. They typically will take longer vacations. So they may be upfront with me and say, hey, I've got a 3-week vacation coming up. And so I can't start, or every Christmas, I take X amount of time off to be with family in another country. That's something that I know up front that I can then discuss with the employer and say, here's the deal. This is a situation that we have, and I can share up front, and it's easier in the beginning than once you've already been employed.
Very good. All right. Well, you guys have Jen's contact info here, and I know by working with her and Steve through the chamber that they're both very responsive and kind people, even if you just have some questions as far as you know advice. So don't hesitate to reach out to them. And I thank you, Jen. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time
Thank you
today.
for having me, and thank you to everybody. Good luck with your searches. If there's anything we can do to help you, you have my contact information, and I'm always here for advice.
Okay. And this is also recorded, so we'll put it on the library's YouTube channel shortly. I think probably before the weekend. So if you were interested, or you know somebody that might be interested, you can share it and pass it along. Okay.
Sounds good.
Well, have a great day,
Thanks,
everyone. Thank you,
everyone.
Jen.
Bye-bye.